Hi folks, I'm Alan Watt and this is Cutting Through the Matrix on Christmas morning, 25th of December 2016. Very early in the morning, actually. And what a year this has been, eh? What a year. For so many people, I think, across the planet, as we go through our pre-planned, managed destinies, we might say, of nations at least, as we go through the free trade deals and so on, the wars ongoing and the wars to come, all planned a long time ago, because nothing really on that level ever is spontaneous. It just doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen at all. And we've seen so many changes just this past year, in fact. And the Masters have got a new frontman in, I guess, for the US to make people believe that there's going to be some positive change for the better for the people. And that's the standard thing that Carroll Quigley talked about. And Carroll Quigley, as I mentioned so many times, I was one of the first guys to bring all out, the information on him. Now you can buy his books because they're all out of print and anyone can reprint them and sell them, which they actually do, especially shows that I've been on. Eventually that's what they would do. But Quigley talked about how there's really an oligarchy at the top and how they put in the party that they want to serve them best for that particular period. And that's all that happens. Then politicians are allowed a certain amount of competition amongst themselves, but it's all decided in advance. And that really is how it goes. So, unfortunately, as I say, we'll get wars, more wars, all pre-planned. And you can tell which countries are all involved already and which countries Mr. Trump is giving a lot of allegiance to, you might say. But to those people out there who've been following all this year, as it gets more and more intense, and really is all media hyped. I don't care what media you listen to or talk about and so on. It's media hyped. Everything really is these days. People have given their minds over to whatever particular favourite media they follow. And they don't realise that nothing is there by chance. When you go into the history, as I've mentioned many times before, of the magnates, the big moguls, who created the big consolidated media of the US back in the 1920s and 30s, and all the studies they did to see how many newspapers they had to own or control to standardize all opinion and thought. And the Rockefeller organization was behind it way back then. They were pretty accurate, in fact. Today, people think, and you're encouraged to think, that you're all your own bosses. You can say what you want on the internet, or you can tweet whatever you fancy doing. Don't think for a second that all that is managed as well long before they gave you the internet. Of course you don't give away power. Power never gives away itself to other people. It's always planned to be passed on, but never just given away. This doesn't happen. And to standardize opinion, they simply give you the television and the internet. And it's very effective, the agencies that work the internet on behalf of the masters, the oligarchs of the planet, and how people, just like schools of fish. Have you ever watched little minnows or even sticklebacks, as you used to call them, in the water of a stream, and how they'd all move at the same time in the same direction and change direction at the same time? That's how populations are viewed by the masters of the planet. And they quite easily create the flash mobs. Remember that? The flash mobs. How to stir folk up to be flash mobs. Now you don't even have to have them physically meeting anymore. And flash mobs today are into colour revolutions managed by the big boys too. But now you can do the same thing without even having them physically appearing at a certain place. If you attempt to target whatever, they'll do it automatically without thinking that they're getting used. It's perfect, isn't it? Perfect. And so many have fallen into the trap without thinking, because they think they're free. They think the internet is somehow theirs. I don't know where they got that from. And they can really change the world by simply vocalizing the passed around information, the recycled information that's put out for them to grab. Remember, 2 algorithms. It's an important thing, and this will be imparted by other media too shortly. It's also important to understand how algorithms work and how they build on previous algorithms like patterns. Well, that's how your thought patterns work too. And if you want to manage people's minds, what they do is simply put out the little meme to start with. That's the building block. And then it could be the foundation. And from that, you will think you're coming to your own conclusions, but you're actually getting guided towards the next part of the building block, the next part, the next part, the next part, until in your head, into your mind, you have a complete understanding, you think, of how something developed, and you don't realize you're being used. It's a perfect system. And they have so many supercomputers they call them, Cray computers, etc., to manage your thoughts all the time, the sock puppets and everything else. Nothing has been left to chance. Power never leaves anything to chance, never. When you see that all the think tanks that the CFR alone controls, and the big foundations, all working together in the same agenda, when you see them all, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of think tanks alone, all there to advise governments, etc., do you really think they'll just give up and, and shake their heads and walk away? Of course they won't. And none of them would exist if they said, well, we never saw that coming. They must always project in the future what will happen and work towards it so they can never lose power. That's what power does. That's why power doesn't get lost. But as I say, never, and I've always spoken to the individuals really, because you can't help those who go into the mass mind, the hive. You can't help them. You've got to only help those who are asking the right questions too, and who can handle the truth. I mean, it's a pity you couldn't put out kits on how to handle the truth, because you can't. Everyone's different. And don't fall out with everyone around you. It doesn't work, because what's the point in that? Why isolate yourself when an enemy would love that to happen? Then you're useless then. You must take your time, cope with things, and don't lose it as you start to learn more and more and more. And even when you learn more and more, take those facts and analyze them, dissect them, and see where they came from, and make sure that they are all facts. You're getting used again. But the world's a very, very devious place. It's always been a devious place. Always. Countless generations before us existed, remember? We tend to think that there's nothing before or after. People live in their own time. And that's encouraged. It's encouraged, especially today, with a society that since about the 1960s or 50s even has been created for them, where most people have arrested development, deliberately so, that only young people matter. That was all put out by Hollywood and your mind managers to make it so. And most folk think that way today. They don't think of before and after. That way they don't go into previous wisdom. They don't think about the people who went before them that had to struggle through their own lives. And it's through struggle that they learn. It's through struggle that you question. It's because of struggle often that you question anything at all. Why things are happening the way that they happen. And when you realize you're not the only generation that ever lived or existed, you realize that the understanding of human nature and managing mass populations is a very old technique and well understood. It's a science. And today, it's more sciences have been created or developed from that to manage them all and even use them more perfectly and get them to adapt and accept the system as the system goes through its planned changes. It isn't simply and only being taught to accept your servitude, as Aldous Huxley talked about quite a few times in his lifetime. It's also the fact that you acquiesce to the things you should not accept. As you're trained to accept things, because introduced into the system, into the techniques of control, is this thing called apathy. And apathy can be done collectively or it can be done individually. I've mentioned before, the talks I've given many times over about the firewall of the mind. The mind has no firewall unless you switch it on. And if you switch it on, you have to literally analyze anything that tries to get through into your mind to alter your thoughts. Because that's how control of the mind really works, and how societies, through governments and agencies and professionals and behaviorists and so on, have had people comply with things that perhaps, again, as Aldous Huxley said, they shouldn't really comply with or accept. It's all done through scientific techniques. And remember, too, that you certainly do have real rights as a living being on this planet. Your time on the planet, too, is pretty short, believe it or not. There are long times, I'm sure, as a teenager, if you think back, for those who are not anymore, you would think of the eternal boredom at times, or my God, how could you live a massive long life? You don't realize that once you're in your 20s and so on, things start to speed up. Until eventually, and if you make it to an older age, the days are going to be flying in, because there's nothing novel anymore. You understand a lot more than you used to, and therefore the day doesn't drag on as it seemed to be before. It will buzz by in no time at all. And a lot of folk won't even make it to a certain age, because we live in toxic times, planned toxic times. And those who are in charge of the world, the Machiavelli workers, on behalf of their masters, they're always busy at it, finding ways to bring down the population, to make things harder for people to mate by disabling people. That's a big one. And by introducing things into society to cause cancers and various other things, and sterility, of course, which is nothing novel, since they've had all the big world meetings about it long before I was born. We live in very deceptive times, and everything is really micromanaged. Really is micromanaged, isn't it? And with Agenda 21, 2030, and now 2030, 2040, and so on, as time goes on, it's just the ongoing Agenda 21 plan, basically. Then you're going to find that they're going to micromanage you even more and more off the land, where you can drive or not, what you can drive, can you use gasoline or not, blah, blah, blah. We're living through it right now. All planned a long time ago, years and years ago, all planned. Nothing happens on the spur of the moment from the behalf of the big boys. It doesn't happen that way. If things did, then believe you me, power would constantly change. It never does change. It gets appearance of change of the front people that you think are running things, but they're not running things at all. There's always an oligarchy way above them. And the oligarchy always gets it into power, at least the appearance of power, those who they want at that particular time to get the particular jobs done the oligarchy wants done, more efficiently or faster, or whatever it happens to be. That's all. But getting back to this time of year, it's very depressing for an awful lot of people. Very depressing, because so much will change in your lifetime. Friends you know will die off. All ages. When I was at school, people were dying off even then in my class. I can remember that. All different kinds of things going on. And they'll continue throughout your life. But yeah, I almost died myself this year. And then a few months later, Hamish died. That's how things go. And I hear from people across the world all the time. I know all of them too. Even when I can't always get back to them, I read everything that they send. And it's interesting to share their lives and their thoughts, and to see what they're seeing really through their eyes, in a sense, and to understand what they're going through as well, because that's what life really is about. It's not about political parties or anything else. It's about people. It's about people. And we understand that. You'll gain a lot of strength and purpose by keeping in touch with the real people and sharing their lives all the things that go through, the things which you maybe have gone through before, or you still go through yourself. That's what makes life real and worth living. We're all pretty fragile. We really are. And as I say, so many things in life come and go, but friendship, things like that, are so important, because it's just so many things are flashes in the pan. They come and they go so fast in an age where we're hyper-controlled, where more people spend more time watching television or movies or fiction, that, and you can see in young now, they have a hard time having real meetings or talks or conversations with real people. They have a harder time. That's not by chance either. That's not by chance. Someone benefits from this. Micromanagement. Consent. Everything's manufactured consent. And as I say, I always talk to those, hopefully, who are questioning things, who get out of the herd movement, whatever movement it happens to be at the time, to start thinking for themselves, because that's what's important. And what a world it is, what a reality it is, when you start to think for yourself. You don't fall either for some substitute reality that's instantly offered to you. There are many traps along the way, many of them, all run by the same boys that control every other reality, the mainstream reality, you might say, of fiction, and so on. But as I say, I'm with all those who keep in touch with me across the world. I thank those who've sent occasional donations throughout the year, because this, what I do here, costs money. I've got a whole bunch of sites up there. Things will change, by the way, because I know it's tightening. The whole internet system is tightening, and you're forced to comply with certain new rules and etc. Happens all the time as the big boys create the total tightening of the global system for more control for themselves. And so occasionally, if the sites go down, you'll know I'll try and get them up as fast as I can. And you'll know that it's not my fault. Why on earth would I miss something when I don't have to? It's not my fault. But I do, as I say, want to thank those people who've managed to hang in through thick and thin in their own lives. And a lot of folk out there are struggling. They've been struggling through so many things whacking them all the time. Some people with terminal diseases too, of different ages. It's sad indeed, but you got to stand by people. And if you stand by each other, believe you me, we'll never ever really be alone. Most folk today are really on their own, even when they think they've got 1,000 friends who tweet them or 1,000 likes on Facebook or some nonsense like that, and they don't know what a sock puppet even is. But in reality, you got to make your own acquaintances, and you're lucky in life, like Plato said, to influence and really make friends for life with even 4. If you make 5 people friends for life and held on to them for years and years, you've done awfully, awfully well. So all this nonsense about friends on Facebook and so on, it's a complete fake substitute, commercially driven, but also intelligence driven, to manage your thoughts and to also drain your thoughts to make sure that your profile is updated on behalf of your masters. They got to know everything about you, and you help them willingly. You don't even get paid to do it. Quite something. Never before in history have we lived in such a deceptive age, really. Now, getting back to what I've been saying here, thanks to all the people out there across the planet. And I mean across the planet. It's just amazing where all the different people are. And I do try and get back to you. Forgive me when I can't, because I do get run off my feet at times. I'm still recovering my own health to an extent. And I've got big plans to make this year too. Canada itself is becoming a very unhealthy place. I think it's really the test place for the real heavy aerial spraying, geoengineering that we'll be having, chem spraying for an awful long time, because the trade winds come across here in such predictable ways. They can certainly use it for coverage. But I think also that Canada has been a test bed for a lot of rather nasty things. There's no doubt it's a much better place to manage, because with national or even provincial, which really end up being national health services with sharing this information, it's much easier to monitor the health on a daily basis of the whole population. You can see what comes in, what changes are happening, what effects certain things are having on the public. It's very, very easy in a socialist system. But for all those out there, keep in touch. If I haven't got back in touch with you, forgive me for it, and please get in touch with me again. Just let me know how you're doing. And no one, believe you me, no one is too small. I'm just as small myself to get back in touch with. That's what we are. We're people. We're little folks on the planet here. And that's what makes us human, hopefully. And keep in touch and sharing thoughts and what we see and what we can observe around us is awfully important. It is definitely important to observe and to share what you see. You don't have to go into long, detailed descriptions or analytical dissertations on them. You just basically report what you see and etc. And that's all you need to do for each other and definitely for yourselves, because it keeps you sane. It keeps you sane to know that your thoughts are quite normal. It's a pity there's not more and more people who can really question things too, as you do. But most folk, you got to understand, are truly under the spell of complete, perfect indoctrination. And it's not my viewpoint on it. I'm talking about the big think tanks who, in psychology, etc., mass psychology and behaviorism, that wrote screeds and screeds of books long before now, and they're still churning them out yet, on controlling the populations and controlling the minds of the people. That's why you do have so much incredible entertainment out there to pass you every spare moment of your day, rather than have you think for yourself. So let's all hope we can get through into next year. Let's hope. And let's hope we can slowly, at least spread enough information around to have a movement. And even then, I don't pin my hopes on things, because when movements start, the big boys already send somebody and take them over, etc. But independent thoughts, people with independent thoughts, who can hang on to their thoughts and who can shy away when someone else goes off the rails, basically, then you know something's up. That's why you can't have a movement that gets managed. It's instantly taken over. Think for yourselves. That's what really is important. Think for yourselves. Stay human, very human. And for those who have lost, like myself, people who've died off over the years or even recently, and pets as well who've died, my heart goes out with you, because I've been there myself, believe you me. And that's what we do live for. That's what we work for. And that's what life is all about. It's not to be used as a flash mob for somebody else. So for all those around the planet, from myself, Alan Watt, from Ontario, Canada, it's a Merry Christmas. And let's hope we do, personally at least, have a more contented New Year.